everybody, and welcome to another exciting, hair-raising, fun-filled episode of Radiorama, where, as the name implies, I show you how to work on radios. Sometimes television sets, sometimes stereos. And today we have a Zenith 7-tube set. The model number is stamped on the back, but it's very obscured. I'm one of these people I'm like, who cares what the model is? Basically, it's a probably between a 37, 39 model. I do not know its condition, whether it works or not. Great. I know for one thing the belt is snapped on the tuning. It's not unusual for this era knob to get warped like that. They had not quite figured out plastics yet. So I've got it hooked up to my Variac over here. I'm just going to bring it up slowly. Okay, it's on, and the Variac is on. I'm going to bring it up about 50% just for giggles. Let me look in the back and see if there's any pilot light. This is not as easy to move because it's a big sucker. Ugh. Can't really see anything. The pilot lights are crammed up to the front. Huh. All right, let's bring it up a little bit more. Well, you know what? I'd do this every single episode. It'd work if I actually had the radio plugged into the Variac. Alright, let's try this again. So now it's up about 50%. It's really plugged in. I don't see any pilot lights at all, actually. That doesn't mean anything. That just could mean that the pilot lights are burnt out. But let's see if we got any tube filaments. Yes, we have tube filaments. There's no antenna connected to this either. It's on automatic. Put it on standard broadcast. I hear humming. We got some static, but there's some hum, so I'm not going to try to run this any longer. If you try to force an old radio that's tired and it needs to be rebuilt, you can potentially mess up a lot of things in there, like your field. Well, your basically the cap going to the field coil could short, and that can short that. You can also short your power transformer. Nice original finish on this guy. I'm not afraid of the scratches or anything. I think you can obscure a lot of this. There's a lot of handy furniture products out there. These always break off. It looks like we have some of the tone controls that are broken off. I'll have to order some of these guys from a reproduction company. Tired. I made a wrong turn on a bicycle and got lost, and I wound up bicycling 22 miles today accidentally, so I'm worn out. Doing things a little bit opposite like on this project. It's supposed to rain like cats and dogs for the next couple days, and while it's dry, I'd rather go ahead and work on the cabinet outside. I'm going to use my favorite product. It is Old English. You can buy the stuff at the grocery store. It's been made for a billion years. I usually buy the generic walnut stained version, and what that's going to do is it's going to fill in a lot of these scuffs and abrasions, because I feel personally that the finish on this, for being original, is in really good shape. And I'm usually someone who is more in favor of keeping the finish original if I can help it, because once you strip it down and refinish it, it's gone. That 90-year-old finish, all that patina, it's gone forever. Now, if it can't be helped, if it's absolutely trash, sure, but I think this finish is in rather nice shape, so we're going to go over it with Old English with some paper towels and probably let it soak for a little while to make sure all the colorant gets into the wood fibers that are exposed. Okay, this is after several passes with Old English, and you can see it does a pretty good job of obscuring a lot of the scratches and abrasions and the dry spots. And yes, I know it looks pretty gooey and shiny. That's temporary. I've discovered, well, basically Old English, as far as providing a shine, is just temporary. It's just an oil. And what we want to do after this is set in for a little while is go over it with a wax to essentially clean up the finish and also bring back the original sheen. Back when this radio was made, glossy finishes were very popular. And I've seen a lot of people, when they refinish radios, they'll put a satin finish. sometimes that's not actually accurate as far as how it looked when it came from the factory. Again, this is why I try to preserve the original finishes, because I try to bring it back to as close as I can from what it looked like from the factory. Okay, so now we're going to follow up with some Caranuba car wax polish. So basically I use a Meguiar's old-fashioned Caranuba. I don't like any of the synthetic stuff. That will bring back the gloss. We're going to use an old sock to apply it, and then a fiber cloth to polish it off. Okay, so this is after 3 passes of the wax. If I were to grade the original finish, it's probably about 1 to 100, probably about 85. It's pretty good. The sheen came back. There's not a lot of damage to it. Someone took pretty good care of this. Matt, think about like if someone, for example, had a flat screen TV in modern times and kept it for 90 years and kept it in this good a shape. Also, I think things were maybe built a little more robustly back then. That's just my opinion anyway. All right, stop filming. All right, welcome back to day 2 or 3 of working on the big Zenith. Welcome to day number 2 or 3 of working on the big Zenith, and I'm glad I got all the polishing job done. We in California have been getting absolutely pummeled with rain, and our infrastructure is not meant to handle rain per se, because it doesn't rain that much here. It's been bad, and so I'm huddled in my garage right now with it pouring out there, and I'm going to take the chassis out. We need to take the set screws out of this knob here. There's probably some stuff to unplug from one of these, either the tone organ or the presets. I think the presets are the one where you need to pull the wires, and that stays stuck to the front of the cabinet. At least that's how their consoles are. I haven't worked on this in a while because I'm not sure. Well, indeed, it's been a few years since I've worked on this. I believe... Oh, I remember this. This is a hateful design. You have to get a screwdriver through those 2 holes in the tone control to pull that off, I believe. Oh, that's real fun. The good news is I'm looking here. This is the pre-awful rubber wiring era. A lot of Zeniths from, say, like 39, 40, 41 around there have this shitty, brittle rubber wiring in there. Looks like we need to pull the wires on the tuner. Someone's marked it already, but I probably can't read these values anymore because they've faded so much. Usually what I do is I get a permanent marker and I'll mark one of them one color and then another. And then when you pull them out of there, it doesn't matter if the colors have faded on the cloth wiring. Let me show you something that's real important that I'd forgotten about. I knew there was something funny about this model. And what it is, you got to take the escutcheon off and you remove these 4 screws, because that attaches the pre-select mechanism, which is attached permanently to the chassis. So you need to pull these guys out. After you pull the escutcheon out, then you can slide the thing out. So I know a lot of people probably have broken these damn things because it's something stupid like that. All right, so we have the chassis out here, and it's a pretty nice chassis here. We got 4 IF transformers. And we got a big fat tuning condenser assembly. The question is, what are we going to find underneath? I'm going to bet 75%. Actually, let's make it more like 89% chance that it's been worked on. There's going to be newer components underneath, because I saw scratch marks on the screws and the nuts and bolts holding this together. I was right, but this has got to be the strangest thing. These look like really old replacements. I've never seen these. What the hell is all this about? Looks like someone spilled, or like had a major solder accident here. That's interesting. So that means that the capacitors that Zenith put in this must have not been very good quality. These sure look like 19 1940s era capacitors. Huh. That said, I'm flabbergasted about how little there seems to be in here. I've worked on tabletop radios with more crap in them than this. If you got 2 electrolytics here, actually there's a third. That one's weird too. I don't think that's original either. Oh, wait a minute, that says Zenith on it. Still, it's weird. It's just dangling there, like really crappily. Anyway, so what we'll need to do, first off, is replace these electrolytic capacitors. And then there's a pretty good chance, a healthy chance, that it'll work. I could be eating my own words, though. It looks like the belt's actually just split a little bit. I might be able to just glue that sucker back together again, because the belt itself is not in horrific condition. So, whatever. Let's replace these guys, and then we can assess the working or non-working situation. Okay, so I replaced the electrolytics, and what I found was that the clever engineer, or not the engineer, but the clever repairman who was in here before just soldered a replacement cap over the top of an existing one. Pure genius. Oh, and if you're wondering about what this is, like I said, it's been raining around here, so I decided to get some plastic to cover up my truck because it's been leaking in the rain. Like, I opened up the driver's side door and there was like an inch of water there, so I had to stop it all up and everything. And so I bought a car cover, and I told my wife, like, if you're out and about and you happen to see a place that sells clips, I could use them for my car cover. She comes back with these dollar store clips, which are absolutely useless, but I realized that'd be perfect for gluing this belt back together. So hooray! Hooray, Barbie clip! Anyway, it's time to go ahead and bring this up and see if it'll actually work. All right, moment of truth. Should work great, since especially I have my alligator clip together antenna here. For some reason, the previous person decided to remove the pilot lights. So, all right, we got filament there. I'm not sure what band I'm on, but I have the ability to change the band switch if needed. That is an unhappy sound. Almost sounds like we have a gassy tube or something. Not sure. Well, I realized my stupid mistake, which is when I was looking over the top of this, I assumed that this terminal strip was going directly to ground. It's not. So it's still a floating ground. I need to remove this, take this ground off of chassis ground and move it to floating ground here. All right, so let's try this again. This is part of the fun of like unedited video. You never know. I mean, like, it could completely fail again and sound like garbage. Let's turn it on again. I'm getting filament. Let's see if the plug is plugged in all the way properly. Nope, it's not. All right. There we go. Let's see. Will we get improvement by things being soldered in correctly? That sounds better. Jesus Christ. I think we got some dirty contacts there.
¿Ahora se entiende, abuelita? Ahora. 你们从起进入一个。
All right, well, it seems to be working okay. Again, there's some dust bunnies and stuff that are all built up in here. It needs to be cleaned out, but anyway, I'm going to start recapping the rest of this. Let me roll this around. I want to make sure and glue down that part of the damaged belt. It seems like the belt's actually working once it's repaired, but I want to make sure it's repaired for good. All right, welcome back to day 2 of working on the Zenith. Didn't get much done last night, really. The glue did set up on the belt, so now that's turning really nicely. It'll probably be even better when I oil it up a little bit. That'll make it even more free. By the way, I love the way these things sound when you ding them. It's like mummies find crystal. So we have quite a few capacitors to replace in here. I only replaced about 5 yesterday, and the set does work, so we're off to a good running start. I kind of dig this thing because there is so much room to work in here. It's like you can just really get in here. Plus, you don't have to worry about this stupid wiring crumbling in your hands. Overall, it's in very good original shape. Sometimes I get these things in and they've been beat to death, and this one seems to have had maybe an easier life, and it wasn't completely messed up by repair people, and so I will gladly take that. So the rest of the game is just replacing these caps. It's a boring process, and generically what I do is I'll cut one end and then hook one end of the new lead to the new cap on one side, then cut the other end and solder the other end of the capacitor to the other end. That way you don't lose your place. I might film a little bit of it because I haven't done this in a while, and I know a lot of people are like, well, how do you do it? So I'll show you. And for those of the rest of you who've recapped 10,000 radios, feel free to fast forward the next few minutes. Trying something new here. Hanging the camera from, well, actually it's connected to my Tektronix oscilloscope. So I'm going to replace a few of these just to give you an idea of how I do it. And, you know, everyone else is going to have their own special way of doing it. But this is the way I do it. So we have our new capacitor here. Obviously the leads are way too long. And this takes a long time to kind of get used to. I can eyeball this stuff and generalize about how much I need to trim for the capacitor to fit. So we trim one end, or snap one end of the old capacitor lead off. I tend to look at it several times to make sure I remember its place. You know, just remember something that about it, like, oh, it's connected to that green wire, or it's connected to that whatever resistor. And then I take my soldering iron, which by the way is a Metcal soldering station. They are spendy, but worth every penny. Plus, they're made in America. Actually, they're made, I think, about 40 miles from here somewhere. I keep on bumping this camera with my hat, sorry. So we have the one side replaced. Let me come in here and twist, make the cap as close as you can get it to the other side. And then we'll clip it with my nippers. I usually make a little hook. And you want to kind of orientate it so that it'll attach like so. Give it a squeeze. You want a good physical connection. And then again come in here and you really want to apply a lot of heat. That's why I like these Metcals. They have a tiny little wand, but they get real hot because they use induction. Okay, so let's replace another one. We got this bad boy here, and I've got these orange drop caps, and I can tell it's not going to make it all the way, so what I'm going to do is trim the lead on this one side and leave a little bit more excess of the old lead, and then I'm going to again make a little hook and usually bend it up at like a 90-degree angle. And we come in here and attach it. And we're going to use a little bit of that old lead to lengthen this capacitor's leads because they weren't long enough. Some people that watch these videos that work on modern electronics are appalled. They're like, did they really have components with live traces floating through the air like that? It's like they certainly did. Okay, so now we need to make a hook for the other side. Bend this up a little bit. And again, we're going to squeeze it together and let the solder flow. There we are. And what I like to do at the end is trim the leads. Those little leads will go everywhere. Excuse me. So I just grab it with, those pliers. I should do something about when I do this. It'd be like how Bob Ross used to just beat the dickens out of that paintbrush. So let's go ahead and replace another one. And this is our 0.05 rated cap. These guys almost always have their values printed on it. So I can see here it clearly says cap microfarad and voltage, working voltage basically, DC voltage. This is 0.05 microfarads, working voltage, 200 volts. So there's not much happening on that capacitor. And again, we'll get our new capacitor, kind of eyeball it up. I'm going to trim a decent amount off of one side. And again, make our little hook. There's actually something called a pigtailer that does this for you, but I've done it this way for so long that it's probably faster for me anyway. So attach to that lead there. And again, we want to get the really nice, hot, melty solder so that everything is fused together. And then we'll clip the other side. The lead's basically non-existent on this side. And then run our new cap over. I know that's a little sloppy, but so what? I'm just wrapping it around. And squeeze it all tight. And again, you just want to really get everything super molten. It's like welding. If any of you guys are welders out there, you know what I mean. So there we go. That's good and on there. Sometimes if you're not 100% sure, you want to test to make sure your leads are not going to come loose. Sometimes I try to neaten things up a little bit to make it look nicer. And there you go. That's generally what you want to do for all these guys. So there's nothing to it. It's just mostly busy work. And once you've worked on, I guarantee if you're new to this hobby and you do 2 or 3 All-American 5 sets, you're set. You're good from there. So anyway, that's how I generally recap. All right, so the rest of the capacitors have been replaced. And while I'm under here, might as well go ahead and run my audio through. This already has an audio connection. I can't remember if this has a setting on the front for phono selection. I don't think it does. But I'm thinking what I could do is just have the user switch to shortwave or police band where there's nothing hardly in existence anymore. So let's go ahead and install that audio input, and then we'll give it for a test drive and see what happens, see if it works. And then it'll be time to flip this over topside. Well, actually, we also really need to install a fuse in this guy. This has the infamous transformer eating 6x5 rectifiers. And so I put a fuse in there in case something really goes crazy. It'll pop the fuse versus destroying the transformer. There are actually solid state replacements for 6x5s. And if I wasn't so lazy, I'd make my own. You can put some diodes and some resistors together and you're done. Nice solid state diode, or solid state rectifier. Okay, so I've temporarily jacked in a audio input. We've got some problems with the speaker. So what I do, because I'm not sure who's going to acquire this, of what their musical taste is, and so I will test it on something obnoxious, like some French disco music. Actually, I'm not sure if it's the speaker. I think the volume pot might be dirty. That sounds like an electrical versus a mechanical noise. Yeah, it's electrical. So I think I'm going to clean that pot. All right, so cleaning the pot didn't really do anything. It's overdriving a little bit. It makes me think that maybe could have some bad connections in the tube sockets. I need to clean the top anyway, so I'm going to flip it over. All right, what I'm going to do is clean the top here and also clean all the tube socket electrical contacts. And then we'll test it after that. I'm going to go ahead and put some new pilot lamps in this. In fact, with that being loose like that, it was just hanging there. I could totally see where random contacts with that could cause some issues too. I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about most of the time. So I'm going to clean this up and clean the tube sockets, and then we'll try it again. All right, so I cleaned up the chassis. What I also discovered is that the previous owner, or the person that was running this, was running a 6L6 and a 6F6 socket. Those tubes are not really compatible. They'll kind of work, but they'll also result in probably the crappy audio performance that we were getting earlier. So I replaced it with a 6V6, which is a good, stout, solid replacement. I don't have any 6F6s, but 6V6 is totally fine. So as a result, we have much better audio fidelity, and we don't have the nasty sounds going on in the audio. Of course, if you're not a country music fan like me, you might be covering your ears, and that doesn't sound very pleasant to you. But anyway, you get the idea. So I think it's time to flip the set over and properly solder in and install the audio input feature. And then I'm going to clean the interior of the cabinet. It's got this nice, lovely blue color. It's very dusty right now. It's fine. And I think maybe by tomorrow it'll be time to do final reassembly. Okay, so I've added the audio input. There was actually an existing hole here because I know a lot of Zenith people are pretty, oh my god, you've like changed it somehow. So I basically put a grommet in an existing hole and ran the audio input cable through. And then we have a fuse installed going from input to transformer so that things go haywire with the rectifier, which they possibly could. Hopefully the fuse will catch that first. So I think it's time to test fire it again and make sure it's still all happy and everything like that. Welcome back to day number, I believe, 3 of working on the Zenith, and I had a almost catastrophic moment last night. I was about to toss in the towel and go in, and I tested it one more time, and all of a sudden I heard a click, and bottom line, the rectifier that was in here did exactly what those tubes are known for doing, which is it shorted. And I caught it. These rectifiers are so shitty, and I feel that I need to put a solid state unit in it. I went to the museum and we had these guys, which said it's supposed to be a 6x5 equivalent direct solid state replacement. I tried it, it doesn't work, so I'm guessing probably the pins are situated in a different fashion. It's not that complicated, it's just a matter of putting a couple diodes together. So I just need to figure out how to do that. I think I'm going to continue working on the case. The electronics, for the most part, is done. Let's see. I've got my audio running through. And it doesn't sound too bad. I actually went and got a 6F6 tube. That's the correct output tube it's supposed to be in this thing. The old man down in the corner slowly turned his head. The other thing is that one of the bayonet base sockets has broken, and so I need to fix that. I tried to jerry-rig fix it, and that didn't work. Surprise, surprise. What I tried to do is put a big dollop of solder on the end here, and that didn't work. I don't feel comfortable with that. I'd rather have a known, reliable socket in there. All right, well, I've decided, well, update. I did repair this one bayonet socket, and then the other one broke. And so I had to find 2 new sockets. So this is all I'm going to work on. I'm done working on the electronics tonight. I did look up online how to replace the 6X5 with some diodes, and it looks like it's more complicated than that. You need to compensate for the amount of load that the tube takes versus the diodes, so you have to use some resistors. I'm going to do that tomorrow. I think it's the end of the week at work. And this case, kind of did it in a hurry last time. I did it by hand because, I don't know, I didn't feel like getting my buffer out. But I think I'm going to get my mechanical buffer and work on this some more, because I think I could really make this cabinet sing. All right, so this is my most recently discovered little toy, and it's only like 12 bucks, and it seems to hold up pretty well. It's a little applicator. And what I do is I dip it in the wax, and just like go over the whole thing. And so that'll really increase the gloss significantly. I might even do it on the chassis, who knows? It'd be nice to have it like a completely shiny radio inside and out. All right, well, after about an hour and a half of doing this, I think I've really done a lot of improvement at the cabinet. For being the original finish, in my eyes, this is pretty spectacular. And I know like my crappy cell phone camera is not doing it justice, but like for example, the back of the trim here is still like glossy and shiny. That's pretty nice. I would not dare try to refinish this. I think like the fact that the finish on it looks so good for being 80 something years old, it'd be sacrilegious to try to strip this down. So yes, it does have some imperfections, but that's okay. It's perfectly all right. In my opinion, I will take a very nice original finish that has a few blemishes over a refinished radio any day of the week. So I think that concludes this evening. Tomorrow I'm going to probably take the chassis into the museum. We're going to do some discussions about how to replace the 6X5 with a solid state equivalent. Welcome to the 4th day of working on the Zenith. Anyway, I did a little research last night and stole someone else's idea. I wasn't sure how to do this because I've never replaced a 6X5 with diodes, but I'm going to do it this time. So this is the underside of the tube. This is all the pins, 1 through 8. So what I need to do is put a diode coming off of pin number 3 and 5 join. I get their anodes and cathodes mixed up. Anyway, the striped ends will go together, and they will go to a 150 ohm resistor that will go to pin number 8. And that should do it. So if we look in here, you count from, if you're not sure how to count your pins, you count from the keyway on these octal tubes. So that's 1, 2, 3. Pin number 3, that one side's going to the transformer, and then already lost my place. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Another lead going to the power transformer. And the last pin is this guy, which has our B plus on it. That's where the resistor will go. At least I'm hoping that's what's going to do it. Definitely going to bring this guy up slowly on the Variac. And luckily I have a nicer Variac here. I should quit being a cheap ass and just buy myself one of these. It's a Syncor isolation transformer, which allows me to see current draw. Syncor makes excellent stuff. They're still around. These guys sell for about $250 now. But I should get one because I work on radios every day of the week, and it'd be nice to have. So note to myself, quit being a cheap ass. So I'm going to solder that in and then bring it up and see if that solves the problem. Okay, so it's not pretty, but here's our diodes and resistor. So it's time to cautiously bring it up. So let me hook everything up. Hooked up the speaker, hook up the variac, and monitor closely. All right, here goes nothing. Got it on my lowest draw setting. That's not the best sign I've ever seen. It's drawing quite a bit. I don't know about that. That doesn't make me feel comfortable at all. Okay, well that little trick worked just fine.
Yeah, I've got some solid state 8-pin optical.
Okay, so we're finishing up the restoration here, and I'm missing 2 of these tabs. And so I found a bunch of longer ones in here. So I'm going to do an experiment. I cut one of these down. I'm going to melt a hole in it so it can go over these sticky outy tabs. All right, so we got it all back together again. Pretty nice sounding radio if I don't say so myself. Anyway, one of our other members has the replacement tabs that we're missing.
Look up here, you'll find it if it's there.
But probably I'm not going to get those for a few more weeks, and by then I'll forget I've made this episode. So I'm going ahead and conclude this episode with it mostly finished. Anyway, this set should be a good, reliable player, especially since we have gotten rid of the dreadful 6X5 and replaced it with solid state equivalents. All right, thank you all so much for watching. And if you have any questions or comments, you can leave them in the comments section down below. Until the next time radio comes across the workbench, see you guys next time. Adios.